What's up guys, seeing as it is the start of a new month, I mean it is late by a couple of days, but you guys can excuse me for that. I thought it'd be a good idea to recap everything cool that's happened on the channel in January. So what I'll be doing is covering my 3 favorite comments, 3 questions from you guys, and my 3 favorite tracks I heard in January. So let's start with the comments first. So first up we have Armando's comment from the Brown Sugar reaction, and I thought he had an amazing take on the concept of the record, which I didn't notice. It's very difficult to catch quite a nuanced take as Armando's on the first listen. He essentially says that there is a progression in the lyrics where the first relationship is the slaver and the slave, which is completely messed up, and then he goes into the lady of the house and the houseboy, which is still pretty messed up. And then you have what is a kind of normal relationship, which is the author and a black woman. And he's putting himself in this controversial lineage and interrogating his own feelings about it. I thought this was an amazing take, and it really puts a new kind of understanding of what the track is actually trying to say. And I think you guys will hear more about that later in this video. Awesome comment. Awesome, absolutely awesome comment. Secondly, we have Zen, who left a comment on my video where I watched a bunch of interviews from Paul McCartney, and he leaves a really interesting observation that I think is kind of true. And it's the idea that classical composers did not have to deal with the distractions that musicians in the 60s and in today's time have to deal with. And so they had many more hours free to compose, arrange, and expand upon the music in their heads. Now, I don't think that's a crutch that musicians should use nowadays. I think actually technology allows us for new ways to express ourselves. But I think he's on the money in this idea that because it was the only thing, the only outlet, maybe even the only way for musicians back in the days out of poverty, it would have been something that consumed them completely. And it's maybe why the music of that era and that time, the classical composers, were so prolific and so fantastic. So great comment left by Zen. And then lastly, we have Paul, who leaves a comment about him enjoying watching this new generation, my generation, appreciating the great music of his time. And I love seeing comments like this, hearing comments like this, because I think it's kind of the ethos of the channel, you know, the idea of bridging gaps in terms of generations and even in genres. I'm a hip-hop fan who is learning to appreciate this new music, so I always appreciate comments like this. It's cool. I feel like the idea of the channel is almost working in essence. But that actually brings me to the next question, the first of the 3 questions. Here we go. So we have Bob here, who is asking, I think, a pretty interesting question, one that I didn't expect to hear from someone. And he's saying, Saeed, curious if you have a mission statement for your site, where you hope it goes and why. So I guess one day I'll tell the full story of this channel and how this thing came to be, and kind of in context in terms of my life. But basically it was an experiment gone really right. I always had a plan to make a YouTube channel, but I was just kind of experimenting with ideas in the beginning, and I had this idea that I could do this thing where I bridge the gap between genres, where I, as a hip-hop fan, maybe discover new rock music and at the same time present great hip-hop music to the audience. Now, I haven't done so much of the second part, but I think it's a cool way to bridge the gap in the sense that we may come from different backgrounds and even different genres of music we grew up to, but there's a common ground here that we share with each other, that you love this music and I'm learning to love the music too. But in terms of the mission statement, you know, I have plans to be a filmmaker at some point in my life, to create things of my own, to have maybe one day someone sitting on their channel reacting to the things that I've made in the way that I'm doing for other people's art right now. And so the channel is great in that sense. You guys have kind of seen my progression as a creator. I had never recorded, edited, filmed anything in my life prior to making this channel, and so it's been a process of learning all of that stuff. So I guess the mission statement of the channel is just to make awesome content that people like to watch, bridge the gap in a sense, and also in learning how to be an artist, because what better way is there than to learn from the great artists of the past? So I guess that's a mission statement, if you want to call it that. Okay, so next up we have Martin, who has a pretty funny question. He says, do you live under a rock? Which is a pretty common question I get. I guess it's because of the nature of the content and the titles of the videos, which are like hip-hop fans first reaction to, and it's people trying to understand how I can go all my life without listening to some of these records. But I think there's like 2 parts to this answer. One is that for my generation, I think it may be hard for people to realize who come from the 60s and 70s, growing up with this music and feeling like these people, these artists were like gods, Lennon, McCartney, Page, and can't understand how someone didn't see them in the same light. But, you know, I was born in 95. Tupac was our hero, you know, Biggie Smalls, Kanye West, Jay-Z. These were our Lennon, McCartney, whatever you want to say. If you guys are aware of like Spotify statistics that were put out recently, hip-hop is the predominant genre of the world now. Kids who grew up, especially after me, I have a younger sister. I mean, rock music, like the stuff that I cover here, she would have no clue about. It's just the nature of how it works, you know, the stuff of the 60s. It can't last forever and can't have the same impact. And then secondly, I would say is I grew up in London, in East London. It's a very urbanized area. We didn't grow up listening to rock music. It was all hip hop, grime, stuff that would be much more relatable to the stories that I saw growing up. Yeah, I guess that's why I've not heard any of this stuff. I've heard some of it. I've heard some of it in like advertisements and like movies and stuff. But yeah, I guess that's a long-winded answer to your question. And lastly, we have Beatles for Sale, who surprisingly asked a Beatles question. He says, or she says, no offense, but really, wouldn't it be nice to cover some Beatles? Far and few between. So I feel like I have said it a bunch of times, especially in Beatles reaction videos, but the Beatles catalog is the most difficult to react to. It is so well guarded. It's unbelievable. I think they've got like a crack team of guys in a basement somewhere whose job is 24 hours a day to search YouTube for reaction videos and anyone using their music. It's unbelievably difficult. I think I have a solution for it, but it literally takes months in advance. It takes creating a video and then kind of sitting on the video for a long while for it to then become visible, which is like really hard to do, and sometimes it doesn't work as well. So that's the answer. I wish I could listen to more Beatles. I really wish I could. They have awesome music which I'd love to discuss and analyze, but I'm working on it. So hopefully you guys will see some stuff soon. I'm working, trust me. You gotta trust me on this. Okay, and now the best 3 songs of January. So first up, we have Since I've Been Loving You. Now, the third album of Led Zeppelin has been a little bit of a hit and miss so far up until Since I've Been Loving You. There's been some tracks that I thought were awesome, Immigrant Song, and other tracks that I didn't really like Friends. It's definitely something that they were trying to go for, something different, more eclectic, but they nailed it on Since I've Been Loving You. It is a culmination of everything that I think is fantastic about Led Zeppelin. It's got these great organ sections. Of course, you have Jimmy Page's brilliant guitar style, but it's laid back, it's tension building, it knows when to release its power, and then you have the beautifully bluesy, haunting voice of Robert Plant over the top of it. It reminds me a lot like the track No Quarter. Some people might not make the comparison, but I think there's a comparison, not in the subject matter or the music, but in the sense that it plays with dynamics and space so well. It goes quiet, the texture changes, and then it will explode and create something brilliant with this amazing imagery of this guy maybe in a hotel describing his passion in the same way a lightning storm is almost. That's kind of what I got from it. A great track. Everything great about Led Zeppelin can be found in this song. Next up, we have Megadeth's track Holy Wars. This was the very first track of Megadeth's that I checked out. Awesome song. It absolutely blew me away. I thought I had my favorite metal band wrapped up in Metallica. Turns out they're not the only progressive metal band in town. That also goes to Megadeth, because I guess Dave Mustaine's influence goes across both bands. He was a part of Metallica at one point, and it shows because he has this style that's unreal. I mean, you have all these different phases in the song. There's 2 parts of the track, but within those parts are several different phases. You have different grooves, different riffs, different rhythms. It's unreal, and to go on top of it was fantastic lyrical writing as well, really vivid imagery, and all in all was a mind-blowing track, eye-opening to how good Megadeth was. And lastly, we have, I think, the best Rolling Stones track I've checked out so far, Brown Sugar. It is so much fun. It's full of vibrancy and that taboo, rebellious gray area that the Rolling Stones sits in with their music is, I think, best reflected in this track. A lot of the comments around that video were talking about how they've had to stop performing the track because people are, I would say, a little bit too sensitive nowadays, because I think it's an awesome song like the comment was speaking about from Armando, that is exploring the nature of the love that Mick Jagger and his feelings he has around loving this woman who he is so attracted to, and he explores it in such a brilliant way through the slave trader and then the lady of the house, and it's all put in context, and it's just a brilliant track. Super fun, a track that is taboo, makes you want to move, and one of the best, I'm going to say the best Rolling Stone songs I've heard so far. That's it. That was the wrap up of the month of January. Hope you guys enjoyed. I am so glad to share this journey of music and whatever else we're doing in this channel. I feel like we've got this awesome community. We're sharing ideas, we're giving our takes on music and bridging the gap between generations, which is always very, very cool. So other than that, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out.